Alright, this is Seaman Annual 1, and it is the reason that there wasn't a video yesterday. I spent all of the day looking for this below average comic. You see, the tricky thing with Seaman is I have his comics spread across multiple collections. Some are in with my Defenders collection. Some like this should be in with my Avengers collection. Some are in with Fantastic Force. This was in with none of them. Because if you look here, I used it in the collage of covers for the thumbnail for the Seaman covers video I did. And after that, I didn't put it back where it belonged. So it got buried under other comics instead. It's really not worth all the effort. We're not even going to talk much about the main story. One of the backups is what I want to focus on. But here we have a quick recap of Seaman's origin. It isn't in-depth enough for anyone to care about it. All the annuals this year, 1991, they had these 3-page origin stories for the characters at the start. But our main story ties into the crossover Subterraneous Wars, but barely. The art is what you would expect from someone who used to work with Junior Senior on cover corrections, but then left to try and make their own style. This splash page works, it looks good, but then a lot of the other bits look rushed and a bit lost stylistically. One thing I appreciate is how quickly this gets into the plot, and it wastes no time. There is a war going on, a subterraneous war. Seaman, he makes sense to tie into a crossover like that, since his Kingdom of Seaworld could be put in the same umbrella as mole people and sewer urchins. It is all below the ground. This annual tells a competent story, but it hurts from its irrelevance to the main crossover. Or maybe its strength is that it has little to do with the crossover. Subterraneous Wars was a crossover that year that was, I guess, an Avengers story. It had all the underground races and communities within the Marvel Universe going to war. Totally fine idea, definitely potential there, but the 5-part story almost has no story. The first and final part, both written by Roger Thomas, they set up and conclude a story respectively, but there is no middle there to actually provide the actual story. We get stuff like this, or the Iron Man one, where he didn't even touch on the war or what was set up. Subterraneous Wars was Another in a long line of annual-based crossovers that had a plot that could work, but then flopped everything about it. This one has a single scene here where Alfred tells Seaman that the other Avengers are involved in a conflict and that he should go and help them. But Seaman doesn't. Seaman goes off to have his own plot elsewhere, where, for a page, he utterly humiliates Captain Stingray. Poor Captain Stingray. He just can't catch a break. All the Avengers ever did for Captain Stingray was beat him up and leave him for dead, get him shot, and destroyed his life's work. Well, hey, at least nobody was hurt, except for Captain Stingray. Seaman goes to investigate another subterranean race that only he knows about. He thinks that they might get involved in the war. They're different. They're not mentioned outside of this issue. It is a true filler tie-in story. The other beef I have with it is that not only does it not incorporate Seaman into the crossover almost at all, but the annual also complicates Seaman's series. Jason Byrne was writing and drawing Seaman's series, and he has nothing to do with either of the annuals that they put out during it. And there was some lip service at the start by having Seaman in a business suit, but it really, placing this in the middle of Jason Byrne's run is a waste of time, because it plain ignores and doesn't care for whatever Seaman's then goal or motivations were. This is a generic Seaman story that breaks up his ongoing series with something that contradicts parts of it. Once you get beyond all that, it's competent. If you just read this one annual and nothing around it, it's acceptable. If you remove it from the crossover and see it as only a Seaman story that can be placed before or after Jason Byrne's run, it's decent enough. That is about it for all the things I have to say about this story. Captain Stingray comes back and his face is miscoloured. But what I really want to talk about is the next story, which I cut any mention of in my Invaders omnibus unboxing. We have a new story here, supposedly starring the Invaders. This is written by Roger Thomas, and since they included the 1993 miniseries and that new story from 2006, both also written by Roger Thomas, this should have been included in that omnibus. And as some idiots cried that all the Roy Sternman and all the Jason Byrne Invaders inspired stories should have been in it too, but I would have been content if they kept it down to the original 70s series, because even if they limited it to Roger Thomas like they tried to do, they still missed something like this, or something like that bad one he did very recently. This story has two other things of note, but they might just be of note to me and to no one else. We introduce a Golden Age version of Captain Russia, who has his own unique costume here, which is ignored in his two other appearances. Most of this character's story is sadly told in an Andy book profile rather than an actual comic. But we do get some of his backstory here. The other thing is that this is set after Steve Rogers disappeared. And so the Captain America in this is actually the first replacement, Spirit of 69. This is one of the very, very, very few times we actually see this character in his role as temporary replacement Captain America. Still to this day, we have a source of untapped story here with Spirit of 69. This even suggests that he is a dickhead, very nationalist and xenophobic, and that is something that is never reflected in any of the other stories that he very briefly appears in. I find this interesting. I find the dynamics at play and the two characters we never got to see fleshed out anywhere else all to be quite appealing. This is the most we have gotten to see of Spirit of 69 as Captain America. The main other time was in Captain America and Bucky Man Add Wounds. It is written by a bloke called James, and James is my middle name, so it might be the closest we ever get to me writing Captain America. The art here is very early work from the artist of the Pervert Ant-Man series. He has been around for ages, and he does have some cartoonist chops. While not as extreme as Frank from Baskin and Robbins, I do actually think that he would be a good pick to follow in his footsteps on Invaders. This story itself is a bit bleh, but there's enough novelty, at least for me, in seeing the least developed replacement Captain America and the barely utilised Golden Age Captain Russia. And Seaman is in it too. I forgot to mention him. Our other story is not as good. Seaman, he is led on a merry little chase by his friends and his allies, who all seem to want to take turns having a fight with them. They are trying to distract them because they are leading them to a surprise birthday party. It is a story that I have seen done at least 4 times in 1991 alone. I mainly only got through it because I wanted to show you Phoebe Mars's tremendous cleavage. I have a question for you all. If you have a pin-up featuring the original Avengers, drawn by Michael Elboy, where would you put it? The answer is at the back of a Seaman annual, obviously. I don't think I recommend this. It takes a very specific type of person like me to get something out of it. I will end by wishing a happy birthday to any of my prospective wives today. She doesn't remotely look 45, does she? I rate this annual January Jones thumbs up, because I want to see what emoji one commenter will use in place of the traditional 7 thumbs up ones.